Super Saiyan Sukuna. That has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? And I feel the Saiyans in Dragon Ball Z have a lot more in common with Sukuna than meets the eye. I have made a video on Sukuna already on how I think when it comes down to it, Sukuna may not actually be the bad guy. There's a small chance that Sukuna may actually have a face turn, and just like how in Shaman King, Sukuna may end up being a good guy due to the fact that there are glimpses of his kindness shining through. Well, maybe not kindness exactly, but definitely him being a mentor figure to characters like Megumi, Jogo, Higuruma in the recent chapters just before Sukuna killed him. Now, I know what you're thinking. Didn't Sukuna end up killing all of these characters anyway? And in Megumi's case, he ended up taking over his body and killing his sister. But that's why I say Sukuna showed glimpses of kindness, where he saved Megumi from Mahoraga and was mentoring him back in Season 1 when Sukuna and Megumi were having their 1v1 fight. He showed kindness to Jogo just before his death, telling him to stand proud and that he's strong, making Jogo hear these last complimentary words from the strongest being to have ever lived just before dying. With Higuruma, he was more or less training him to get stronger. It was more a brutal PE teacher or a gym teacher type of mentoring rather than the arm around the shoulder type of mentoring, but he was still teaching him how to use reverse curse technique. He even showed kindness to Gojo back in chapter 236, saying that he was magnificent and that he will never forget him. Again, just before Gojo dies, he hears these words from Sukuna. Now, if Gojo wants to take it as a compliment, that's a different story, but you can tell Sukuna genuinely meant what he said in that moment. But in these brief moments, we saw a different side to Sukuna. We didn't see the brutal, bloodthirsty demon. We saw a human with that kind human side to him that can potentially still exist deep within Sukuna, just like how we saw with Hao Asakura in Shaman King. We saw chapters where Hao would secretly grieve for his mom all alone when no one can see him, whilst on the outside, when he's with his crew, he showcases this false bravado where he's nonchalant with everything and it seems like nothing ever gets to him. But because he's by far the strongest character in the verse, he also has this monstrous arrogance about him. Like, he knows he can defeat anyone that comes across him, so that's why he has this carefree attitude. But eventually, the desire to be the Shaman King is what ultimately took over and made him lose control. His character changed slightly. He wasn't as carefree towards the end. He was a lot more angry, which led to the big fight between Yo and his crew versus Hao, which then led to all the characters to return, including Masamune and Hao's mom, to talk some sense into Hao. And all everyone wanted was for Hao to be the best Shaman King that he could be. I don't see Jujutsu Kaisen having a happy ending like that, but there is a possibility for Sukuna to also have a complete face turn due to the characters like a Gojo, Kashimo and Yoruzu talking about the loneliness of being the strongest and how Sukuna doesn't understand love. That could make an impact further down the line in the story. So for me, Sukuna being an undercover mentor is one of his characteristics. The other characteristic I found, and I'm sure a lot of you can also see from reading the latest arc of Jujutsu Kaisen, is that he is hungry for battle and loves to test himself out. Between the chapters of 245 and 247, basically the chapters where it was Higuruma versus Sukuna, you can see the same instinct within Sukuna here. In chapter 245, he admitted to being guilty of causing mass murder in Shibuya, and his reply was, "I'm only interested in the sword. I don't care what I did or when." The sword he is referring to is the Executioner's sword, and in the next two chapters, Sukuna is so giddy with the fact that he gets the chance to fight off against Higuruma in chapter 246. It was even stated in the narrator box that Sukuna was fascinated by the Executioner's sword, shining brightly again, guaranteed to kill by the man with the talent equal to Satoru Gojo. So a weapon like the Executioner's sword is not a guaranteed hit, it's a guaranteed kill. So of course Sukuna wants to challenge himself against such a weapon. But then when you read chapter 247, there's a part where Yuji jumps in to help Higuruma in his fight against Sukuna, and Sukuna bluntly says to Yuji, "Get it through your head, you're boring, you don't thrill me at all." But only a few moments later, within the same chapter, Sukuna used Dismantle and sliced off Higuruma's right arm and was asking him to heal himself using reverse curse technique. And when reading this, it feels like he was hoping Higuruma could do it, because it felt like he saw a prodigy, just like how in the end of Dragon Ball Z, Goku saw Oob and knew that was the reincarnation of Kid Buu. But just like Sukuna, Goku could also sense the immense potential Oob had, so he had to fight him and see the potential for himself. And that's what Sukuna was doing with Higuruma. Higuruma is a Jujutsu sorcerer for less than 2 months and his progression has been immense. So you can only imagine what he would be like in a year or 2 years' time with the proper training. But look at how Sukuna treated Yuji and Higuruma. He called Yuji boring and is practically begging Higuruma to show off his talent and show how quick he can learn one of the most exclusive techniques in all of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is the reverse curse technique. Sukuna has a lust to challenge himself and to fight off against strong characters, but that in itself is a challenge for Sukuna since he is already the strongest character. That's why I think characters like Gojo and Higuruma excite him, because he can see the potential in all of these characters and how much stronger they can get. Goku throughout Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, and even in Dragon Ball GT, he was never the be-all, end-all strongest character in the verse. There's always a stronger character than Goku who he then finds and would want to challenge them in a fight in order for himself to get stronger. During the Tournament of Power, Goku's big challenge fight was against Jiren, and he was getting destroyed by Jiren. But due to his love for fighting and wanting to get stronger, he managed to find another level in Ultra Instinct, which then turned into the mastered version of Ultra Instinct, where Goku had the silver hair. That is the journey for Goku in these brief feuds with these characters that he has a challenge with. Goku went from fighting against Jiren in Super Saiyan Blue to Ultra Instinct Omen that can dodge but not attack, to then having that form being able to attack, which then led to Mastered Ultra Instinct, where he can attack, defend, dodge, anything. But all of this was a result of Goku wanting to challenge himself against a strong fighter. And we saw that same journey with Sukuna against Gojo, where Sukuna learned the world-ending cleave thanks to Mahoraga being able to adapt to Gojo's infinity, where Sukuna observed Mahoraga in that fight so he himself can also adapt to it and have an attack that can slice the area of space and time he aims the world-ending cleave at. But to get to that stage, Sukuna had to endure the domain expansion battles with Gojo, where he would win in the beginning, but eventually Gojo took the upper hand and had him in his Infinity Void. But after that fight was done, Sukuna compliments Gojo. I feel Sukuna was more grateful to fight Gojo because he was able to then improve upon his attack. After the fight with Gojo, his strongest attack is now the world-ending cleave. I'm sure Akutami is saving a bigger attack, but guys, he's gotten stronger after that fight. Just like Goku or any other Saiyan from Dragon Ball Z, my main point is I believe there's a chance that Sukuna may be doing all of this fighting because he just wants to fight against strong fighters that can push him to get stronger. Why else would he say to Gojo that he will never forget him? It's because Gojo was a strong enough fighter to actually push Sukuna into becoming an even stronger fighter than he already was. Sukuna for me has that Saiyan instinct of wanting to fight against strong opponents. I feel there's the Vegeta side and the Goku side to Sukuna's character. And when I say Vegeta, I'm talking about the Saiyan Saga Vegeta when he was evil. Sukuna, like Vegeta, has that sadistic evil side that will slaughter thousands of innocent civilians if he's feeling bloodthirsty, like how Sukuna did in the Shibuya Incident arc. But he also has the Goku part of his character where he wants a challenge or wants to fight a strong fighter. In chapter 221, as soon as Gojo made a return back to the story, Sukuna jumped in and challenged Gojo straight away. He didn't waste any time with that. So for me, I feel Sukuna has a Saiyan type of personality where he just wants to fight and doesn't necessarily have an evil world-ending goal in mind. He never mentioned that he wants to take control of the world like how Geto mentioned back in Jujutsu Kaisen 0, where Geto just wants a world full of only strong Jujutsu sorcerers. The only time where he had a plan was when he planned to take over Megumi's body, and that was only to use the 10 Shadows technique, which falls in line with the whole him wanting to get stronger. Because the 10 Shadows technique will make him stronger, especially in a fight against Gojo, who is a 6 Eyes and a user of Infinity. Gojo himself mentioned to Megumi that the heads of the Gojo clan and the Zenin clan killed each other a long time ago, with the head of the Gojo clan being a 6 Eyes and having the ability to use Infinity, and the head of the Zenin clan being a 10 Shadows technique user. So we already know that the 10 Shadows can defeat Gojo if used properly. So that curse technique in the hands of the king of all curses will definitely give Sukuna an advantage in his fight against Gojo. And it did, as he used Mahoraga against Gojo, which led to him learning the world-ending cleave to slice Gojo through his infinity. But again, this plan was set out by Sukuna in order for him to get stronger and in theory for him to use against Gojo. It's got nothing to do with some grand plan like something Kenjaku will come up with. Sukuna is a simple guy. He just wants to fight and get stronger. That's why I don't think he will be the final villain. I think another character will end up being that. He will either be the fused version of Master Tengen and the Japanese people, aka Monster Tengen, or it will be either Yuji or Megumi. Yuji is the least likeliest to be a villain out of the three, but I truly feel it'll be one of these three and not Sukuna who ends up being the final boss of the story. Anyway, let me go over to you guys now. Do you see the comparisons between Goku and Sukuna? Do you believe Sukuna only wants to fight and get stronger rather than actually being the main final villain of the story? Let me know in the comments down below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the Shaman Tribe.